All right, so you want to know how they brought down Alphabet,
Mm.
the biggest online black market before it got shut down.
Yeah.
Buckle up, because this deep dive is going to take us through the shadowy world of the dark web,
Absolutely.
the rise of Bitcoin, and a global game of cat and mouse between criminals and investigators.
It's a wild story, and what I think is so fascinating about Alphabet
Yeah,
is that it goes way beyond just one website.
right.
It kind of shows us how crime is evolving in the digital age
Yeah.
and how law enforcement is struggling to keep up, especially with cryptocurrency.
Okay, so for anyone who needs like a quick refresher,
Yeah.
the dark web is like a secret part of the internet, right?
Yeah.
Where people can hide their identities and locations.
Yeah, you can think of it like a digital back alley,
Oh, I like that.
where anything goes. Good for privacy, but also perfect for illegal activity.
Right, exactly. So that's where Alphabet comes in.
Right.
Picture a massive online marketplace
Yeah.
where you could buy and sell anything, illegal, drugs, stolen data, you name it,
Yeah.
all anonymously using Bitcoin.
Alphabet was a game changer.
Right.
It wasn't just another dark web market. It was the market, dwarfing even the infamous Silk Road.
Really?
We're talking at least 3 or 4 times larger.
Hold on, bigger than Silk Road.
Yeah.
I remember that was a huge deal when it got shut down.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What made Alphabet so different?
I think it was a combination of factors. Alphabet had a much more sophisticated technical infrastructure, making it harder to track and shut down.
Ah, right.
Plus, its administrator, known only as Alpha 2, was extremely cautious
Uh-huh.
and learned from the mistakes of Ross Ulbricht, the guy behind Silk Road.
Right.
They went to great lengths to hide their identity
Right.
and make the site's finances virtually untraceable.
So Alpha 2 was like a phantom,
Yeah.
like a digital mastermind
Uh-huh.
who was able to build this massive criminal empire and stay completely anonymous.
Yeah.
Talk about a challenge for investigators.
Exactly. That's what makes this such a fascinating detective story.
Yeah.
We're going to see how investigators use new techniques, particularly blockchain analysis, to track the flow of Bitcoin,
Okay.
unravel identities, and eventually dismantle this criminal enterprise.
Wow.
It's a twisted tale,
Yeah.
with some surprising twists and turns along the way.
Okay. So we've got this mysterious figure, Alpha 2, running this massive illegal operation.
Right.
But before we get to Alphabet, let's rewind a bit and talk about the Silk Road and the early days of Bitcoin,
Yeah,
like the prequel to our main event.
exactly. You can't understand Alphabet without understanding the Silk Road,
Yeah.
which really paved the way for large-scale criminal activity using Bitcoin.
Hmm.
In the early days, Bitcoin was seen as this untraceable, anonymous digital cash.
Yeah.
This idea of anonymity drew a lot of attention, both good and bad.
Yeah, I remember hearing about Bitcoin back then and thinking it sounded like something out of a science fiction movie.
Right.
But how did it actually become a tool for criminals?
Well, Ross Ulbricht, who went by the online alias Dread Pirate Roberts,
Hmm.
saw the potential of Bitcoin for anonymity and used it to create the Silk Road,
Uh-huh.
the first truly large-scale dark web market.
Okay.
The Silk Road was a game changer. It demonstrated the potential of Bitcoin
Yeah.
for both legitimate and illegal activities.
Right.
Its success led to a surge in Bitcoin's popularity and value,
Right.
which in turn attracted more criminals.
So the Silk Road proved that Bitcoin could be used for something other than just buying pizza, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But it also made it a target for law enforcement.
Of course.
So how did they finally catch Ulbricht?
Well, Ulbricht made some crucial mistakes.
Like what?
He slipped up and revealed personal information online that investigators were able to link to his Silk Road activities.
Oh, wow.
Plus, while Bitcoin offers a degree of pseudonymity, it's not completely anonymous.
Okay.
Every transaction is recorded on the blockchain, this
Right.
public ledger that anyone can access.
Wait, so even though you don't use your real name with Bitcoin, investigators can still trace your transactions.
Exactly.
How does that work?
Think of the blockchain like a giant public spreadsheet
Okay.
where every Bitcoin transaction is recorded.
Right.
Investigators can analyze this data to see where money is flowing, even if they don't know the identities behind the Bitcoin addresses.
So they can follow the money.
Yes, exactly. By analyzing these transactions, investigators were able to track Bitcoin from the Silk Road back to accounts controlled by Ulbricht.
Wow, so they followed the digital trail of breadcrumbs.
Exactly.
It's mind-blowing how much information can be gleaned from the blockchain.
It is.
But I guess that also means criminals can't hide forever, right?
Right. The Silk Road's takedown was a major turning point.
Okay.
It proved that the dark web wasn't this impenetrable fortress of anonymity,
Right.
And it showed that law enforcement was beginning to understand how to investigate crimes involving cryptocurrency.
Uh-huh.
But, it also created a vacuum that would be quickly filled by a new, even more sophisticated player,
Oh,
Alphabet.
this is where Alpha 2 steps in, right?
Yep.
They learned from Ulbricht's mistakes and made Alphabet even bigger and harder to track.
Yeah, much harder to track.
I'm guessing that's where things get even more interesting.
You bet.
So last we left off, the Silk Road had just been shut down.
Right.
And Alphabet, under the mysterious leadership of Alpha 2, was poised to take over as the king of dark web marketplaces.
Exactly.
But Alpha 2 was playing it smart,
yeah.
making sure they stayed hidden and covered their tracks.
Oh, yeah. Alpha 2 was incredibly careful.
So how did investigators even begin to crack this case?
Well, even the most meticulous criminals make mistakes.
That's true.
And in this case, the mistake was a seemingly insignificant email.
An email. What do you mean?
A welcome email.
A welcome email.
Sent to new staff members of all things.
Okay, that doesn't sound like a smoking gun. What was so special about it?
Well, it contained an IP address.
Okay.
Now, a single IP address might not seem like much in the vastness of the internet,
Right.
especially since people on the dark web use all sorts of techniques to mask their location.
Yeah, like VPNs and all that.
Exactly. VPNs, proxy servers, all of that.
So it's not like they can just pinpoint Alpha 2's exact location from this one email.
No, not at all. But it was a starting point, a tiny thread that investigators could start to pull.
Okay.
Think of it like this. They were trying to navigate a digital maze in complete darkness.
Uh-huh.
And this IP address gave them like a faint glimmer of light, a direction to start moving in.
So they got this IP address,
Yeah.
but who was on the other end? Did they know it was Alpha 2 at this point?
Not yet. Not at this point. The IP address led them to the Netherlands. But it took a lot more digging, tracing the IP address through different servers and online services to connect it to a name.
And what was her name?
Alexander Kazas.
Alexander Cassis.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So they had a name case closed, right?
If only it were that simple.
What do you mean?
On the surface, Kazas seemed like a totally legitimate and successful entrepreneur living in Thailand.
Oh, okay.
He owned a web design company, lived a luxurious lifestyle, drove a Lamborghini.
Hold on, a Lamborghini. That doesn't exactly scream dark web kingpin, does it?
Right, exactly. It was totally unexpected.
Wow.
He was living a double life. But remember, investigators were meticulously following the money.
Right.
And the blockchain doesn't lie. This is where the work of chain analysis becomes absolutely crucial.
Okay.
They were able to connect Kaz's seemingly legitimate financial activities to Alphabet transactions.
Okay, so Cassis was trying to play it cool, pretending to be this successful businessman.
Yeah.
But the money trail was leading right back to him. How did Chainalysis actually manage to connect those dots? It still sounds kind of like magic to me.
It's not magic, but it is definitely sophisticated.
Okay.
Chainalysis developed these incredibly powerful tools that can analyze millions of transactions on the Bitcoin blockchain.
Wow.
They can track the flow of funds between different addresses, even if those addresses are trying to be obscured. And they can start to identify patterns, links between seemingly unrelated transactions.
So they're like digital detectives, piecing together this complex financial puzzle, using the blockchain as their evidence.
That's a great way to put it. In Kaz's case, they were able to see how money was moving from Alphabet through a series of complex transactions and eventually ending up in accounts controlled by him.
It's mind-boggling to think about the amount of data they must have been analyzing.
Oh, it's massive.
So they finally have their man, or at least they're pretty sure it's their man.
No.
What happened next?
Well, knowing who he is and proving it are two very different things.
Right.
Remember, Canizas was living in Thailand and Alphabet was operating across international borders.
Right.
This meant coordinating with authorities in multiple countries. It was a delicate and complex operation with a lot at stake.
So a global manhunt?
Essentially, yes.
I'm guessing they didn't want to tip him off before they were ready to make a move.
Exactly. They had to move quickly and decisively to prevent Kazas from destroying evidence or disappearing.
Right.
They needed to catch him red-handed, so to speak, while he was logged into Alphabet, which would provide irrefutable evidence.
Okay, so how did they manage to pull off this international arrest? Was it like a dramatic raid?
It was actually more cunning than that.
Okay.
They used a clever ruse involving a damaged gate at Kaz's house to distract him while they seized his phone.
Wow.
The initial arrest was actually under a false pretense to buy them some time before he could react and potentially destroy any evidence.
Oh, wow. That's thinking on their feet.
Yeah.
So they got his phone. What did they find? Was it the final nail in the coffin?
Once they got past Case's encryption, it was game over.
Oh, really?
His devices contained everything they needed: passwords, financial records, personal notes.
Wow.
It was a goldmine of incriminating evidence linking him directly to Alphabet. There was no denying it anymore. Alexander Cases was Alpha too.
So they finally unmasked the Phantom Mastermind case closed, right?
Well, not quite. There's a twist to this story.
Really?
A tragic and shocking one.
What do you mean, don't tell me he escaped?
No, Alexander Cases was found dead in his jail cell in apparent suicide.
Oh, wow. That's intense.
Yeah.
It must have sent shockwaves through the investigation. Did they ever figure out why he took his own life?
It's still a mystery. Some people believe he was murdered to prevent him from revealing sensitive information or cooperating with authorities. Others think the pressure of facing a lifetime in prison was simply too much to bear.
Yeah.
We may never know for sure.
It's a dark end to an already dark story.
It is.
So Alpha 2 is gone. The mastermind behind Alphabet is no more.
Right?
But what about the marketplace itself? Did they manage to shut it down?
They did. After Kaz's arrest, law enforcement was able to seize Alphabet servers and shut down the entire operation. It was a massive victory for law enforcement, a major blow to the dark web ecosystem. But the story doesn't end there.
Wait, there's more. What could be more audacious than shutting down the biggest dark web market in history?
They didn't just shut down Alphabet, they took over another major dark web market called Hansa.
Why would they do that? That seems incredibly risky.
It was a calculated risk and a brilliant strategic move. By secretly taking control of Hansa, they were able to gather intelligence on thousands of dark web users, their identities, their locations, their activities. It was a massive intelligence coup.
Wow, so they went from playing defense to going on the offensive.
Exactly.
Infiltrating the very heart of the dark web. That's incredible.
It was.
But also kind of scary, right?
Yeah.
It raises some serious questions about surveillance and privacy.
You're right, it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it allowed them to disrupt criminal activity and potentially prevent serious crimes. On the other hand, it did involve a level of deception and surveillance that some people find unsettling.
So they took down Alphabet, seized Hansa, and sent a clear message that the dark web is not a safe haven for criminals. What happened next? Did this mark the end of the road for dark web markets?
Not quite. The dark web is like a hydra. You cut off one head and two more grow back. New markets emerged. But the landscape had shifted. Alphabet and Hansa served as a warning, a reminder that law enforcement was catching up using new technologies to fight crime in the digital age. But as we'll see, the story doesn't end there. The Alphabet investigation had ripple effects that reached far beyond the dark web, uncovering even darker secrets and leading to new, even more challenging investigations.
Okay, now you've really got me on the edge of my seat. What else did they uncover?
That's what we'll delve into in part 3 of this deep dive, and trust me, it's a story you won't want to miss.
We've been on this wild ride through the dark underbelly of the internet, tracking the rise and fall of Alphabet. And we saw how investigators use cutting-edge techniques to bring down this digital empire. But you mentioned that the story takes an even darker turn.
Yeah.
What exactly did the Alphabet investigation uncover?
So as investigators were sifting through the massive amounts of data seized from Alphabet,
Right.
they stumbled upon a financial trail that led them to a horrifying discovery. A website called Welcome to Video.
Welcome to Video. What was that about?
This website was a platform for sharing child sexual abuse material.
Wow.
It was one of the largest and most disturbing cases of its kind.
Hmm.
And what made it even more chilling
Yeah.
was its connection to the Alphabet investigation.
I'm speechless.
Yeah.
It's hard to fathom that something so horrific could exist hidden in the darkest corners of the internet.
It's tough to even talk about.
Yeah.
But how did investigators even approach a case like this?
Right. It seems like finding a needle in a haystack.
It was a challenge, to say the least. Many of the agents and analysts working on the case had never encountered anything like it before.
Right.
It was emotionally draining and psychologically taxing, but they understood the gravity of the situation. Every single day that website remained active meant more children were being victimized.
Right.
So it was a race against time to shut it down and bring those responsible to justice.
So how did they even begin to track down the people behind this website?
This is where the power of blockchain analysis and the expertise of chainalysis once again proved invaluable. Welcome to Video was using Bitcoin for payments.
Right.
And despite their attempts to conceal their transactions, those transactions left a permanent record on the blockchain.
So they followed the money again.
Yes, but with an added layer of urgency and complexity. This wasn't just about dismantling a criminal enterprise. It was about rescuing victims and holding their abusers accountable. Every transaction, every Bitcoin address was a potential clue.
Wow.
that could lead them closer to identifying those involved and shutting down the website.
It must have been incredibly difficult for the investigators knowing the nature of the material they were dealing with.
Oh, absolutely.
Were they successful in shutting down Welcome to Video?
Yes, they were. Through meticulous blockchain analysis, they were able to identify the website's administrator, a young man in South Korea named Sun Jong-woo.
Okay.
They worked closely with Korean authorities to arrest him and seize the website's servers, effectively shutting it down.
What a relief that they were able to stop this operation.
Yeah,
I can only imagine how many children were spared further abuse because of their actions.
it was a major victory, a testament to the dedication and perseverance of the investigators involved in the investigation, led to the rescue of numerous children, and brought a sense of justice to those who had been harmed.
So we've gone from the takedown of Alphabet to uncovering this network of child exploitation. It's a stark reminder of the dark side of the digital world and the challenges facing law enforcement in the 21st century. What are some of the key takeaways from all of this?
I think the most important takeaway is that the blockchain, while often perceived as a shield for anonymity,
Right.
can actually be a powerful tool for investigators.
Yeah.
Every transaction leaves a trace, a digital fingerprint that can be analyzed and followed.
So criminals might think they're hiding in the shadows, but the blockchain is shedding light on their activities.
Exactly. And the Alphabet and Welcome to Video cases highlight another crucial aspect,
What's that?
the need for international cooperation. Crime in the digital age transcends borders, and effective law enforcement requires collaboration between agencies around the world.
It sounds like a global effort is needed to combat these increasingly sophisticated criminal networks.
Absolutely. And it's an ongoing battle, a constant game of cat and mouse as technology evolves. So do the methods used by criminals, and law enforcement must constantly adapt and develop new strategies to stay one step ahead.
We've seen the impact of blockchain analysis in these investigations. But what about the future? Are there new challenges on the horizon?
Oh, there are always new challenges. The rise of privacy-focused cryptocurrencies like Monero, designed to be much more difficult to trace, presents a new hurdle for investigators. And then there's the ever-increasing sophistication of ransomware attacks,
Right.
which often demand payment in cryptocurrency, disrupting businesses and individuals worldwide.
It seems like the fight is far from over. Any final thoughts for our listeners as we wrap up this deep dive into the dark web and the pursuit of cybercriminals?
The battle against cybercrime is constantly evolving, with new technologies and tactics emerging all the time.
Yeah.
You know, the Alphabet and Welcome to Video investigations show us the power of blockchain analysis in bringing criminals to justice.
Yeah.
But they also raise important questions
Uh-huh.
about privacy and security in a digital world.
For sure.
We need to be aware of the risks, advocate for responsible use of technology, and support law enforcement's efforts to combat these evolving threats.
Well, thank you for guiding us through this complex and at times unsettling world.
Of course.
It's been a truly eye-opening deep dive. We'll see you next time for another exploration of the most fascinating and important issues of our time.